Hello, and welcome to English Avenue Podcast.
Your cozy little place to learn easy English through real, everyday conversations. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake, and this is the place where you can slow down, breathe a little, learn natural English, and maybe leave feeling just a bit lighter than before.
Much lighter. Jake, you know that moment when something falls apart and one person immediately says, "Don't worry, everything happens for a reason."
Yes, and depending on the day, you either feel comforted or you want to stare at them in complete silence.
A very long silence.
Because sometimes people say things that sound comforting, but they don't really leave room for how hard something feels.
Yes, sometimes the sentence sounds nice, but the timing feels terrible.
Yeah, like, smile through the pain, bestie. It's destiny.
It sounds comforting for about 2 seconds.
And then the actual pain enters the room.
Right. And suddenly that pretty sentence feels a little too pretty.
Too neat, too shiny.
Well, real pain is usually sitting there with messy hair and no answers.
Yes, real pain did not prepare a speech.
No, it really didn't.
And that is why today's topic is so interesting, because this phrase can feel beautiful or frustrating or both at the same time.
For some people, it brings comfort.
For others, it brings a tiny eye roll.
A tiny one?
Fine. Sometimes a huge one.
Thank you for your honesty.
Always.
But that's what makes this conversation real. Most people have heard this phrase. A lot of people have said this phrase, and many people are still trying to decide how they feel about it.
Because when life hurts, people want meaning. They want something to hold on to. They want to believe the pain is not just random.
Yes, a breakup, a missed opportunity, losing a friendship, a plan falling apart. Those moments make people ask big questions.
Questions like, why now? Why this? Why me? And also, excuse me, what is happening?
That last one is very real, though.
See, I try to be relatable.
Hard to believe, Mr. Jake, but commendable.
I'll take that.
But yes, that confused feeling is exactly the point. When something painful happens, your mind wants an answer straight away.
And that's the hard part.
Because meaning doesn't always come right away.
No, sometimes it comes much later.
And sometimes we're the ones who slowly create it.
Which is why this episode is not really about one famous sentence.
It's about how people live through confusion, disappointment, loss, change, and the very human need to make sense of life.
And honestly, I think that's why this topic feels so personal, because almost everyone has had one moment in life that made no sense at first.
But later changed something important inside them.
Even if they still wouldn't call it a good thing.
Exactly. That's the space we're talking about today. The space between pain and meaning.
And as always, while we talk, you'll also hear useful English words, phrases, and expressions naturally inside the conversation.
This is a B2 level episode, so don't worry if you don't understand every single word the first time.
Yes, just relax. Listen for the feeling, listen for the ideas, and let the English come to you naturally.
And later in the episode, we'll have a calm little word tour where we go back through some of the most meaningful vocabulary and expressions from today.
So, if life has ever confused you,
if something painful ever changed your direction,
or if you've ever looked back on a difficult season and thought, I still don't fully understand it, but I'm not the same person anymore,
then there's a very good chance this episode will feel close to home.
And tell us in the comments, do you believe everything happens for a reason?
Or do people create the reason later?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know, we came prepared today.
Very rare. Please enjoy it.
Seriously.
And if you enjoy learning English with us through calm, natural, everyday conversations, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might really connect with this one.
All right.
Let's begin.
Why do people want so badly to believe that everything happens for a reason?
Because I don't know why this is happening is a very uncomfortable place to sit.
Yes. It's like your mind keeps knocking on a door and nobody answers.
Exactly. And when life feels random, people start looking for a pattern, any pattern.
even a small one.
Right, because somehow even a painful answer can feel easier than no answer at all.
That's so true. Sometimes people are not even looking for philosophy. They're just looking for something to hold on to.
Yes, a reason, a lesson, a sign, anything that makes the pain feel a little less loose.
A little less loose. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Because pain with no meaning can feel like carrying water in your hands. You're holding something real, but you can't quite keep it together.
Whoa, yes. And maybe that's where this phrase begins, not always in wisdom, but sometimes in fear.
Or in hope.
Yes, hope sounds kinder.
Because if something has a reason, then maybe it's leading somewhere. Maybe it's not just chaos. Maybe it's taking you somewhere you can't see yet.
And that changes your perception a little.
Right. Your perception is just the way you see or interpret something. Two people can go through the same kind of pain, and one sees only loss, while the other slowly starts to see direction.
And sometimes, much later, people look back and say, maybe this was inevitable.
Yeah, inevitable means it was probably going to happen anyway, not because they wanted it, but because, looking back, they can finally see the cracks were already there.
Like a relationship that looked fine on the outside, but inside something had already started drifting.
Or a job that looked stable, but deep down you were already unhappy every Monday and Tuesday and honestly Wednesday too.
Wednesday really got blamed for everything there.
Wednesday has a suspicious energy.
It really does.
But yes, that's the thing. Believing there is a reason can make people feel a little less lost.
Even if the reason is still blurry.
Exactly. And maybe that is enough, at least at first.
But then again, this phrase does not comfort everybody.
No. For some people it helps. For others, it makes them want to quietly leave the room.
Yes, and that's where this gets interesting. How can the same sentence feel healing to one person and irritating to another?
And that's where the nuance comes in.
Yes, because this topic is not black and white.
Exactly. Nuance means there are small emotional differences inside the same idea, tiny shifts in feeling, but they change everything.
I think timing matters a lot here.
Yes, because the same sentence can feel kind at one moment and hurtful at another.
Exactly. If someone says everything happens for a reason, many years later, when you are calmer and have had time to heal,
You might listen and think, maybe that's true.
but if they say it while you are still crying, still shocked, or still trying to understand what happened,
Then it can feel too early.
yes, because in that moment, you may not need a reason yet.
You may just need someone to understand that you are hurting.
Exactly. So sometimes the words are not the real problem.
The timing is the problem.
And that changes everything.
Because sometimes the phrase helps by giving a person hope.
But sometimes it hurts because it moves past the pain too quickly.
Right. And that helps us understand something important.
Yes, people do not only need meaning.
They also need to feel seen.
Yes. Sometimes before people need answers, they just need someone to sit with them for a moment.
No fixing, no big lesson, just being there.
And I think that's why this phrase can feel so difficult sometimes.
Yes, not always because the words are wrong.
But because people often say them too soon.
Exactly, and that is the real problem sometimes. Meaning may help later, but when it comes too early, it can feel heavy instead of comforting.
Yes, because not all pain becomes wisdom in 5 minutes.
No, some feelings stay, they linger.
Yes, if something lingers, it stays longer than you expected. Longer than people around you expected, too.
And some experiences stay unresolved for a long time.
Meaning you still do not have peace with them yet.
Exactly. And I think people forget that. They want pain to become neat too quickly.
But healing is not a school presentation. It doesn't arrive with bullet points and a conclusion.
Sadly, that would be very convenient.
Honestly, yes. Slide 1, heartbreak. Slide 2, growth. Slide 3, thank you for listening.
Beautiful structure, terrible emotional reality.
Exactly.
Because real pain is slower than that. Sometimes you do not need a reason yet. Sometimes you just need time.
Yes, time to feel it, time to be confused, time to not have a clean answer.
And yet, later on, some painful things do become turning points.
Yes, not all pain changes your life in a beautiful way, but some of it really does change your direction.
And I think rejection and loss are a big part of that.
Ah, yes, one of life's least charming gifts.
Very badly packaged, too.
Extremely.
But it's true. Rejection feels awful in the moment. It bruises your confidence. It makes you question yourself. It can make one no feel much bigger than it really is.
Yes, because in that moment, it does not feel like redirection. It just feels personal.
Exactly. It feels like a closed door right in your face.
And closed doors are rude.
Very rude.
Deeply rude.
But sometimes the thing that broke your plan also broke the illusion that the plan was right for you.
Whoa. Yes. That's powerful.
Because sometimes we are not only grieving the loss itself,
We're also grieving the future we imagined.
exactly, the version of life we had already built in our head.
Yes. And that is why later the memory can feel bittersweet.
Right. Bittersweet means something feels both painful and meaningful at the same time.
Like not getting the job you were sure was meant for you and then ending up somewhere that fits your life much better.
Or losing a friendship that really hurt, but also learning for the first time what real friendship should actually feel like.
Yes. So when you look back, it still hurts a little.
But you can also see what it protected you from, or what it pushed you toward.
And maybe that is what makes some losses so strange.
Because you would never call them easy.
But you also cannot deny that they changed you.
Exactly. It still hurts to remember, but now the pain is sitting beside perspective.
Yes. And maybe that is where something starts to shift.
Because once the pain is not the only thing in the room anymore, you start seeing more than just the wound.
Yes. You start asking a different question.
Not just, why did this happen to me?
But also, what did this change in me? And maybe that's where this whole topic becomes even more interesting.
Yeah, because maybe the meaning was not sitting there from the beginning, waiting for us.
Maybe it came later.
Or maybe we were the ones who slowly created it.
I really love that idea.
Me too, because it gives people some power back.
Yes, because sometimes when people say everything happens for a reason, it sounds like life already wrote the lesson for you.
Like the universe handed in a report before you even had time to cry.
That is such an annoying image.
Very organized universe.
Slightly controlling universe.
Exactly. But real life does not feel like that.
No, real life feels slower, messier, more human.
And sometimes the meaning is not something you find lying there on the floor.
Sometimes it is something you build later, very quietly, from what the pain taught you.
Yes, and that is what it means to draw meaning from something.
You take something valuable from the experience, even if the experience itself was painful.
That feels much more honest to me.
Me too. Less magical, more human.
And kinder, too, somehow.
Kinder?
Yeah, because it does not force you to call the pain beautiful. It just says, maybe one day something true can grow from it. A boundary, a strength, a clearer sense of who you are, a better direction.
Yes, and that feels so much more real.
Because then the meaning is not pretending the pain was good.
It is simply refusing to let the pain be empty.
Whoa.
You may not have chosen it, you may never call it fair, but you can still decide what you carry forward from it.
Yes. And I think that is one of the most human things we do.
We make meaning slowly.
Sometimes years later.
Sometimes with tears still in it.
But still meaning.
Yes, that's beautiful.
But even then, we still have to be careful.
Yes, because once people start talking about lessons and growth, sometimes they begin making pain sound too beautiful.
And that is where things can get dangerous.
Because not every painful thing should be romanticized.
Right. Pain is not automatically noble just because it changed you.
Exactly. Some things are just sad. Some things are unfair. Some things leave marks.
And yes, some experiences can be transformative,
Meaning they change you deeply.
but that doesn't mean the pain itself was beautiful.
Yes, the growth may be beautiful.
But the wound was still a wound.
That's such an important difference.
Because sometimes people talk about pain like it was some wise old teacher.
No, sometimes pain was just rude.
Very rude, actually.
Exactly.
And still, later, you may realize it changed you, but that is different from saying it was lovely.
Yes, and that difference matters a lot.
So then the question becomes, where do we land?
If we don't want fake positivity, but we also don't want bitterness,
What does healthy acceptance actually look like?
maybe it looks like this. Not everything happens for a reason you can see right away.
And not everything that hurts has to become a beautiful story.
But over time, you can come to terms with some things.
Yes, to come to terms with something means you slowly make peace with it.
Not because you loved it,
Not because it was fair.
but because carrying it forever in the same shape becomes too heavy.
Acceptance is not saying, I'm glad it happened.
Sometimes it's just saying, it happened, it changed me, and now I want to live from here.
That feels real.
Yes, real and gentle.
And honestly, I think that's why this phrase stays with people.
Because even when we don't fully agree with it, we still understand the heart behind it.
The heart wants meaning.
And peace.
And maybe a little hope, too.
Yes. And before we close, let's slow down for our word tour and look again at some of the most meaningful words and phrases from today.
Yes, because this episode gave us a lot to feel, but also a lot of useful English to carry with us.
And some of these words are really special because they help you talk about pain, meaning, change, and those quiet feelings that are hard to explain sometimes.
So let's take our time with them.
And let's begin with a word that fits this episode beautifully: perception.
Perception means the way you see, understand, or interpret something.
For example, two people can go through the same event, but their perception of it can be completely different.
Or, with time, her perception of that painful moment slowly changed. Repeat. Perception.
Perception. Next is inevitable.
Inevitable means certain to happen or impossible to avoid.
For example, looking back, the ending felt painful, but also inevitable.
Or, at the time it felt sudden, but later the change seemed inevitable. Repeat. Inevitable.
Inevitable. Next, we have a very important word for this topic: nuance.
Nuance means a small difference or subtle detail that changes the meaning of something.
For example, there is a lot of nuance in this topic because the same phrase can comfort one person and hurt another.
Or, if you miss the emotional nuance, you may say the right words at the wrong time. Repeat. Nuance.
Nuance. And now a very useful phrase: shed light on.
To shed light on something means to make it clearer or easier to understand.
For example, their conversation shed light on why that phrase feels comforting to some people and painful to others.
Or, time can shed light on feelings that once felt confusing. Repeat. Shed light on.
Shed light on. Next is a soft but powerful word: lingering.
Lingering means staying for longer than expected, especially with feelings, thoughts, or effects.
For example, even after the event ended, a lingering sadness stayed with him.
Or, some pain disappears quickly, but some feelings are more lingering. Repeat, lingering.
Lingering. Next is unresolved.
Unresolved means not solved, not settled, or not fully healed emotionally.
For example, years later, that memory still felt unresolved.
Or, some experiences stay unresolved for a long time, even when life moves on. Repeat, unresolved.
Unresolved. Now let's go to a beautiful word, bittersweet.
Bittersweet describes something that feels both happy and sad at the same time.
For example, looking back on that goodbye felt bittersweet.
Or, the memory was bittersweet because it still hurt, but it also helped her grow. Repeat, bittersweet.
Bittersweet. Next is a really meaningful phrase, draw meaning from.
To draw meaning from something means to find value, understanding, or insight in an experience.
For example, he did not call the pain beautiful, but he still drew meaning from it.
Or, sometimes we only draw meaning from an experience much later. Repeat, draw meaning from.
Draw meaning from. Next is transformative.
Transformative means causing a deep or important change.
For example, the experience was painful, but it was also transformative.
Or, a transformative moment can change the way you see yourself and your life. Repeat, transformative.
Transformative. And our last phrase for today is come to terms with.
To come to terms with something means to slowly accept it and make peace with it.
For example, it took her years to come to terms with what had happened.
Or, he never loved the experience, but he eventually came to terms with it. Repeat, come to terms with.
Come to terms with.
Those were such beautiful words.
Yes, and they really fit this episode because they help you talk about life in a deeper and more honest way.
And maybe that's what today was really about.
Not finding perfect answers,
but learning how to carry the questions a little more gently.
Take care of your English.
And take care of your heart.
This is Anna.
And this is Jake.
And you've been listening to the English Leap podcast. Bye.
Your progress doesn't end here. To continue advancing your English skills, click on the next video or explore the additional videos we've thoughtfully selected for you.